Hello, everyone. Welcome to RL Grammar Lessons. Okay, today we're going to talk about subject-verb inversion. We know that subject-verb order is the canonical order of the English sentence, meaning normally the sentences are always in subject-verb order. You first tell me who or what we're talking about, and then you report the action or the state of being. But there are cases when this order is inverted, meaning you have part of the verb or the entire verb in front of the subject. And to do this, it is actually a very strong signal of something very important happens. So let's look at what are the important situations. So inverting the subject-verb order, meaning moving the verb in front of the subject, indicates one of 6 situations. We do this, first of all, and we have already learned this when we are doing our grammar grid. To change the subject-verb order, the most important reason is to raise a question, okay? Secondly, to avoid repetition, and then to stress the location of an action, or to stress negation, to stress cause in so that complex sentences, and finally, to stress the passivity of the sentence. Let me explain each one of these 6 different cases. The first case is well known, everybody knows that, right? So if you want to raise a question, you start from a statement. You are aware of your own statement. For example, he did it. And then when you want to change that into yes/no question, and all you have to do is just move your auxiliary verb in front of the subject, and then you have, did he do it? And then when you want to raise WH questions, you use your specific question words, WH words, in front of this yes/no question. So the most basic sign of a question is this inverted subject-verb order. And so I have a list of these sentences with the verb do, okay, then we can check. So in past simple, present simple tenses, you use the auxiliary do to raise question, and the auxiliary tells time. So in the past it's did, in the present it's does or do. The subject is he, so therefore it's does. But when it's future tense, will is the auxiliary. And then in continuous tense, be verbs are the auxiliary. With future tenses, all of them are will is the auxiliary. And then in perfect tense, you use have, which tells time. In the past it's had, in the present has, have, and in the future still it's will, okay? So on. So that makes it very easy to understand. So we never raise question with subject-verb order, and because it's apparently not a question. So in English, the question mark is quite unnecessary because the question mark is already very obvious, the subject-verb inversion. And of course, in writing, you have the question mark. When you speak, you don't have the question mark, right? So how do you indicate that this is a question? You don't ask people, you're from China too? No. You ask them, are you from China too? Very relaxed, okay, with your verb in front of the subject. That's it. So that's the first case. We changed the subject-verb order. We changed it into verb-subject order to raise question. Secondly, we make that inversion, okay, to avoid repetition. For example, if you have a sentence like he did it and she did it too, all right, and you look at it carefully, this is a lot of repetition. Did it is repeated, okay. So you could avoid that repetition by saying he did it, so did she, okay. So that way you avoided the did it, that it word. You also avoided the word order, the sentence word order, which is a good thing, all right. So in English, avoiding repetition is very important, okay. And so negative, you say he did not do it and she did not do it either, and then you can avoid the repetition by putting not either together, saying neither. So he did it, he did not do it, neither did she. So that way you avoid repetition. So I listed all the sentences again with the verb do, and so that we can see that the inversion really happens between the subject and the auxiliary. So you have to be aware of the auxiliaries. For example, say he does not do it, and neither does she. He will not do, he will do it, so will he, or so will she. He will not do it, neither will she. So the inversion happens, okay, very obviously between the subject and the auxiliary. So you have to know the auxiliaries very well. Once you finished learning your tenses grid, so you know that the auxiliaries in English tenses are very important, right? And the negative and the questions are depends on the auxiliaries. So that is the second case of inversion to avoid repetition. The third case happens when we, again, it is an inversion, it is a violation of the subject-verb order, right? Or you should say it's violation or a alteration to it, a change to it. The reason that you change it is because this time you report the location of action rather than the person who does the action first. So subject-verb order asks you to tell me who first. An old man. What? Do what? Did what? Lay under a tree. Okay, so lay under, lay is the action. Where? Under a tree. So we always report the location of action at the end of the sentence. However, if you decided that the location of the action is kind of important, and I want to highlight that, if you want to do that, your sentence actually goes backwards, meaning it's not only the subject-verb order changed, okay, the entire sentence goes backwards. So if you say, for example, number one, who? An old man. Number two, action, lay. Okay, number three, where? Under a tree. So it's 1, 2, 3. But if you want to talk about where first, you start with under a tree. Answer, where? Under a tree. Action, lay. Who? An old man. So that's the way that's how you invert your sentence order, because you started with a prepositional phrase reporting the location of the action first. So the city lies at the edge of the hill country, the next example, and you start with where? At the edge of the hill country. Action lies what? The city. So it's backwards. Okay, when you are going backwards, okay, usually the most economical way of answering the question where is there, right? Where? There. Okay, so where, instead of saying under a tree, you could say there. So that same sentence can go like, there lay an old man under the tree, okay, or under a tree. So you can say it that way too. For example, at the edge of the hill country lies the city. You could also say there lies the city, where? At the edge of the hill country. So that's where we get our there be sentence structures or their structures, okay? So, but we actually like to talk about there be together. But I already demonstrated to you there lay, there lies is all right too. So there be sentences come from sentences like this. For example, if you say 15 students are in the classroom, so this is the normal order. Who? 15 students, right? An action or state of being are. Where? In the classroom. So you could also go backwards, right? You could tell me where in the classroom are 15 students. And that sentence you can change it into there are 15 students in the classroom. So now we realize that there are structures is a very simple subject verb inversion case. Okay, it belongs to the case when you report the location of the action first. Now, the situation number 4, inversion stress the negativity of a sentence. What does that mean? Okay, so the title is just trying to sort of help you. You look at the examples, you know exactly what it means, right? For example, if I make a sentence, I say, he seldom does that, right? So in this case, we know it's a negative sentence. Seldom means hardly ever, okay, almost never. So if you start that sentence with that negativity, you start with seldom, then your subject verb order has to be inverted. Seldom does he do that. He never did that. Never did he do that. He not only did this, but also did that. So look at the examples, then you will know what I mean by stressing the negativity of a sentence. Okay, here we are. The sentences, if you started with negative words, then your sentence order is inverted. Okay, so you can tell words such as seldom, only, scarcely, they are all negative. That's what we should pay attention to. And the fifth case is we invert to stress the cause of cause-effect relationship in a so-that complex sentence. This is a very simple one. All you have to say, look at this sentence, say, he was so quiet that we mistook him to be a boring person. Okay, so there's a so-that structure in that. So if you start with the so structure, you go, so quiet was he that we mistook him to be a boring person. You start your sentence with so, and then you have a inverted sentence. Finally, the last case, the sixth case, is to stress the passivity of a sentence. What does that mean? Look at the example. His clothes were thrown all around his bedroom. Okay, this is subject verb order. And then if you invert it, you could start with the past participle part. You say thrown all around his room were his clothes, or printed on the postage stamp was a portrait of the national leader. Okay, so that's when sometimes we do that little inversion too. So that's all for today's lesson. Subject verb inversion. It happens in 6 different cases, not only in question cases. That's it. Thank you very much.